It's August 16th, 2023, and you know why you're here, so let's kick this off right and introduce the players. Hey, I am Gerissar, a WoW esports aficionado.
Hey guys, I'm Bigmoran, and I'm a role player on Moonguard now, and we don't actually have a guest for today. Lucky you guys, it's just going to be me and Gerissar talking about stuff.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Jake couldn't join us. He's got a really early morning and a long work day tomorrow, so we decided to give him the night off. But yeah, I guess since we don't really have. Do you want to just talk about what you've been up to for the last little while, or do you want to just roll right into this whole podcast?
We can talk about stuff for a little bit.
All right. Well, what have you been up to in WoW there, Big?
I've been doing a lot of 2v2, and I started doing some 3v3 on a Frost Mage, which I've really been enjoying. And then yesterday I was playing a little bit of Arcane. I'm trying to practice Arcane because apparently it's really good, but I think I prefer Frost more than Arcane currently. But yeah, I've been messing around on a Frost Mage and playing a little bit of Rogue. Haven't really been playing my Druid, but just mostly been PvPing. And actually I did some Battlegrounds the other day on my Mage. I don't know if I ran into any premades, but had a good time.
All right. That sounds like a pretty good time. How are you finding the changes they made to Frost Mage now with all the Ice Lance and the damage changes that they made to the modifiers?
I think pressing Ray of Frost is really fun. I enjoy that ability. I had not to brag too much. I don't want to go on a tangent, but I had a really cool 1v1 in Arena against a Windwalker monk. He was being really, really pesky, trying to run around, kite me, line of sight, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And he tried to go in and kill me. I altered his damage. Then I juked him, and he gave me precog, popped my icy veins, and I ray of frosted him, and it channeled 100 to 0, killed him. And I felt really cool. I was like, that was the setup. I was waiting for that moment.
It all came down to that one moment. That's awesome.
I talked a little trash, not to him, but I was hyped up, and I was in Discord with my friends, and I was, things got a bit funny there. At the
end. Little bit of like, yeah, take that, Windwalker noob.
Yep, I was saying, you can't line of sight me. You can't.
Did you do any ice puns like ice to see you?
No, I know there's I don't know if you remember that Batman movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yep.
Where he's just like every single one of his lines is a pun.
It was.
It
was so classic to the old comics and everything. That was awesome.
That's my favorite superhero movie, by the way. I know there's been a lot of good ones, and that one's kind of a funny one, right? It's kind of a parody almost, but I love it. Good movie.
Yeah, I think it was good. Well, I can't say I did anything that spectacular, but I did my Vengeance DH. I was trying to bounce back and forth between damage and DPS, and I just got tired of it. So I've just been queuing as tank as Vengeance, and did skirms that way. I did a bunch of epic BGs and some random BGs, and it was. I actually made a friend. There's a Rep Paladin. The two of us started doing. We teamed up as a 2-team and queued skirms until we capped for the weekly. I guess that was last week. That was fun.
Nice. Yeah. I've seen one Vengeance Demon Hunter ever in solo shuffle, and I know they're just really good at CCing healers. You can just stick them on a healer and they can CC them for like 20 seconds. It seems. And I don't know if that's what you've been doing, but it seems like that's what they like to do. And they do a decent amount of damage, I'm pretty sure, right? It's not too shabby.
I think it depends on the spec you're running. Like there's one spec which is more of a high mobility spec, and then there's another one where it uses I think it's a soul bomb, and when you do is you cleave, and once you have all those souls shattered out to the side, then you bomb and it sucks them all in. And then that can do a big burst if you have it, especially if you have metamorphosis up or something like that. Then it just like really goes. But I don't have kill potential. I might. I just need to tweak the spec a bit. But But you're right.
Nice.
Yeah, I do have the ability to just like, well, do tank things that just piss off other players.
And that's the tank special, you know.
It is. It is. I'm sure we'll get some hate mail about how I'm playing a tank in arena. Um, but I think since it was Jake's turn to do Negri Pass, and since it's only the two of us, I don't think we really. Why don't we just skip that and just go right into the upcoming events?
Sure, sounds good.
All right. And I was not prepared for this, so there we go.
Get in there and fight! Stop hiding!
When you're not prepared for your own changes in the podcast. Oh boy. Well, upcoming PvP events. There's one that I ran across over in Reddit. Is actually where I found it, but it's the ID League, which is this brand new league that's being created. It's the Interfactional Duel League, and it's for Wrath of the Lich King. So, a person named Candu is organizing a 2v2 arena over on Wrath Classic. I want to say it's over on the EU side, just based on some of the things, but I can't really tell from the description and the rules. But that is going to be starting on the 17th with qualifiers and running all the way to the 20th, with the grand finals being on the 20th. So if anybody isn't interested in watching the MDI grand finals this weekend, there's a little bit of World of Warcraft PvP for you if you want.
Yeah, it looks like there's some notable players in this tournament.
Mhm.
There's Hydra, Homer J, Queener, and I think Min Poike. And yeah, a lot of big names. I believe this must be an EU tournament.
Yeah, that's why I was figuring is EU.
Yeah, a lot of big people in the EU Classic Wrath community playing in this tournament. So definitely
Well,
a good watch, probably.
yeah, it's a $2,800 prize pool. So
Nice.
nice size little pool. Got some good names to it. So should be a good go. Again, it'll probably be streamed on Twitch or YouTube. As soon as I see it, I'll happily retweet and do whatever I can, and probably put something in the Discord as well. So keep an eye out for those folks. Otherwise, if you want, just go and look up the factional duelers league or ID league, and should be fun. I just kind of hinted to it, but the Blizzard events, the last official Blizzard event for this season is going to be the MDI Grand Finals this weekend, and we'll see the top teams there fight to see who can run a key the highest and the fastest. See if we'll see any more world records broken or not, and see who gets the top prize pool. So out of the 6 teams, now we have Perplexed, NA's Last Hope, Echo, Mandatory, Legendary, and Last Minute. And I'll be honest, I think it's going to be pretty close. I think, although Echo is most likely going to be the for sure winner, I don't know who's going to get second. I think it's going to be a pretty good toss up between Last Minute. Really held Echo to Echo just barely won first place in their group.
I thought Last Minute beat Echo in the qualifier, or am I wrong? I thought they got more points for some reason.
Echo got a one-shot key that beat the timer and took like the half point with like 5 minutes left to the qualifier.
Because they were behind, I think, in the first few days, right? Okay,
they were. Yeah. Last Minute was just running it. So as we can get into that, I think the real question in most of the people that follow this is, what are the comps going to be? Because it was pretty much God comp throughout all of the group qualifiers to this point. But Blizzard did put in some nerfs. They were noticeable during Group C Cup. And I believe there's been some more tuning since. So do you think, are we going to see God comp? And is it weird that we're calling it God comp? Like, there's already a God comp for Arena. Should it not be called something else?
Yeah, well, what's funny is I believe God comp in Arena was originally a 5v5 comp. Shadow Priest Mage Rogue or Shadow Priest Warlock Rogue. Mage Warlock, I gotta remember, and then
Oh.
rest are a Disc Priest or something. Something like that. A lot of control.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of why, the same theme is true with the current Mythic Plus God comp. You get a lot of control with, but specifically with the Augmentation Evoker and Holy Paladin. You got a
Mm-hmm.
lot of coverage against, mob control, and you
Yeah.
have a lot of fail-safe mechanics, Mass Dispel, Zephyr, a lot of things you can do in that comp. So I mean, it's no wonder that it's sort of risen to the ranks. It's just kind of the perfect storm of coverage against every possible mechanic you could deal with in this
Mm-hmm.
season. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, we talked about this before the podcast. I don't know if the nerfs are enough to bring down that comp, because I think just structurally it's so sound, right?
Yeah.
And again, what the theme with Mythic Plus is not necessarily doing the most damage, but not dying, right? And you
Yeah.
kind of got a lot of safety nets with that comp. A lot of ways to not die on all those classes, which helps explain why it's doing so well. And it seems like the gap currently between that comp and other comps is quite big, or at least it was in the previous few weeks. As
Yeah.
it's been
And
taking over.
well, it has, and I think it was taking over before on Live Ladder before I even made it to the stream. But I think that just really showed and epitomized just how strong it was, that everybody did what they did and copied and did the same thing. And you were, again, before we started the stream, you were sharing with me some graphs that were created over on Twitter, just talking about what the Live Ladder Mythic Plus dungeon runs are looking like class distribution wise. And so similar to what we see for PvP, where people show Holy Paladins have skyrocketed, and how different class distributions are, and within the time period played has wildly shifted. And it's same with augmentation evokers and all that other stuff. But again, over on the MDI side, it's like almost all bear tank, and Shadow Priest and Augmentation Invoker are like the top of the top for the Mythic Dungeons. So
Yeah, I
don't
think
know.
that, I mean, this distribution is unlike anything I've seen for PvP, because I've been following PvP representation for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really rare to see any spec get like above 30% representation for its specific role. So in some seasons, I
Even.
mean, during Shadowlands, like Fire Mage was a really popular range
Mm-hmm.
DPS at the high end of the ladder. Arms Warrior was a really well represented melee DPS, but I don't think they ever were more than like 30%. They kind of definitely never more than like 40%.
True.
But as we saw in that graph, like Holy Paladins are currently taking up 92% of the rank 1 titles,
Mm-hmm.
which that's crazy, right? That is unlike any PvP representation I've ever seen. Even when like Holy Priests and Shadowlands were at their absolute peak, I don't think they
True.
even came close to that. Again, it was like 30% of representation. So this is definitely uncharted territory within the class balance discussion, I think.
Yeah. I would say though, the difference between PvE and PvP there is that with PvP, because of the way CR works, where it's a give and take system, right? It's the elo system where if you're going to win some points, you're taking points away from somebody. So as balancing goes through, a class will rise, a spec will rise and fall as to who's actually going to be getting that rank 1 title, right up until like basically the last week. Versus for PvE, there's no takeaway. Like, so if somebody was able to push super high points before that spec got nerfed to the point where it wouldn't be as viable to push that high of a key, there's no loss. And I don't believe there's any inflation on the PvE ladder for keys or anything for the Mythic score. So if a person is able to push to, let's say, 3200 Raider or 3200 Mythic IO score, and then those classes get nerfed so that nobody can ever reach that, they're never going to be ever overtaken.
Yeah, it's like Macho Man Randy Savage once said, "The cream rises to the top," right?
Mm-hmm.
So with these infinitely scaling systems, if you're able to solve them, right? If there's something that's like a clear standout, it's going to inevitably rise to the top. Um, I just don't know exactly what the solution is. And I know people have been saying that maybe there should be a ladder reset, which isn't completely unheard of. I mean, they've done that for PvP, I think. Well, they've done like an MMR reset.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they've ever done like a full rating reset. I want to say they've done it in PvP, but I don't remember when. They've definitely reset MMR, but I don't know if they've ever reset current rating.
No, not in a live, not mid-season. I don't think they've
Yeah,
ever done that
so
mid-season.
yeah, so I would assume that a rating reset is out of the question, and as you
Mm-hmm.
said, that kind of creates this problem. Well, these people, you can't lose rating in Mythic Plus, as you
Nope.
said. So these spots, these rank 1 spots, maybe they're set in stone. Like maybe there's no coming back from this. But I mean, it would probably have to be some sort of rating reset, or like maybe a rollback, not a complete reset, but maybe you know knock 200 rating off of everyone and then do some hot fixes. I don't know. I don't know how to
I don't
fix that.
think I don't think they ever will. I think it's just one of those. It's part of the system, and it's just it is what it is. Like maybe they'll do some buffs to some other classes in hopes that they'll be able to get to a similar IO score toward. I mean, we still have a few months before the end of the season, right? So
Yeah, I think people are saying maybe the
Mhm.
season's going to end around BlizzCon time, maybe,
Yeah, that's the
either
guess.
before or after. So yeah, we got what, 3 months and for a
Yep.
solution to come through, or no solution. And
Mm-hmm.
it kind of pains me. Maybe this is, I don't want to go too far into a little tangent, but what pains me is how strong rewards are in this game and how motivating or demotivating they can be. And in this particular case, I believe Mythic participation has kind of tanked a little bit
Mm-hmm.
in the past few weeks. In the same way that PvP representation or PvP activity tanked after like the ret rework. Um, and it's kind of sad to me that the game is like the activity is so susceptible to just these drastic changes as a result of balance.
But
And
is it really just the game though? Because I mean, there's a bunch of. I mean, there's Baldur's Gate 3 came out, so gamers went to go play that. There's still Diablo 4. A whole bunch of gamers went to go play that. There's the new Overwatch 2. And then there's a number of other games. And plus, let's be honest, it's August, right? So there's people going on vacation. There's kids getting ready to school, so they're probably doing a bunch of preschool stuff. So they lose out on gaming time. So I mean, if you look at an 18 to 60 spread right now, there's a limited amount of game time. I think the reason why we're seeing low participation isn't because people are hating how the gameplay is. I think there's just other things they'd rather be doing. And since everything's so much easier right now, there's no constant grind where if you don't play for a week, you're behind.
yeah, that's an interesting conversation too. How right now making an alt is the easiest it's ever been. You can get to max item level for PvP or PvE within the matter of a day, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like literally a day. Whereas in previous expansions, there was some system that sort of slowed that down. And I was definitely one of those players who was like, no, remove all the gates. But now we're kind of seeing what happens when you remove those gates, right?
Yep.
If you completely ungate everything, you get these really weird repercussions where people will just chase the meta without stopping to think whether or not that's a good idea, or whether or not that's good for the game to have all these people suddenly playing the same classes, right? And
Yep.
It's a very I didn't even consider that. You know, my philosophy has always been in WoW, I want to play whatever I want to play. I typically am not a meta chaser. But it's quite obvious that a lot of people do like to chase the meta. We saw that with Red Paladins in PvP, and now we're seeing that with God Comp in PvE. So, you know, maybe it's not as good as we thought.
I got to cut you off though, because I guess there's a difference between PvE and PvP, because for PvP, you always have the counter comp, right? So sure, there'll be a bunch of people. So for Ret, that was well overpowered. It didn't matter who you're up against. You still, just drool on the keyboard and you still won, right? You can make a bunch of mistakes and you'll still win until they nerfed it down enough. I would say right now, even with augmentation evoker, there's still some counters to that. And with this, we're seeing, I think, that the strength with where DKs are, some of the strengths that mages have shown up with, the strengths that rogues have, that there, you might have the people that chase the meta, but there's always the counter meta. And I think that might be the reason, going back to your conversation about percentages, why you never see over 30 to 40% on a single class or spec, because there's people that are playing those other side, the counters, because they know that if 40% of the games they're going to be running into are going to be that comp, well, if 40% of the player base is playing that one spec, chances are about 50% or more of your games are going to be against that comp. And if you're the counter comp, you're going to win it unless you mess it up. Versus in PvE, there's no counter to you. The only counter to you is the developers and what they decide to do to the class and spec in within the week's time.
Yeah. It's definitely, though, like there's some cautionary tale that maybe we should learn from these experiences, despite them being a bit structurally different. Maybe having no gates can potentially create some issues. Now, I'm not saying we should go back to what artifact power, at some long grind like that, but maybe something should be in place to prevent this from happening, because I mean, it's abundantly clear to me that there's a significant portion of the player base who doesn't feel attached to their characters in the same way that I personally do. I am very prideful of being a Resto Druid. I'm very prideful of being a Rogue, a Frost Mage, Priest. These are classes I've been playing for years. These are my staples, and I've never gone away from them. And so for me, it's hard to understand how people could not be attached to a main character like that. And maybe there needs to be something that attaches people to characters a bit more securely, so that we don't have these very strict metas. And I know, right, the meta is always going to exist, but I feel like there needs to be some sort of incentive for people to play their main and stick to a main for a long period of time. And I don't think that's being satisfied right now for some reason. I have no problem doing it, but a lot of other people seem to not want. I mean, you've been playing Warlock a long time, Paladin a long time. Like you tend to stick to those things. I know you started playing Demon Hunter, but
not really. I mean, so let's hear. So I played Warlock. I made the Paladin as a fun joke during Burning Crusade. Tanked on it off and on various X-Packs. Cataclysm, I switched over. I made a character on a whole new server, Frostmage, to do RBGs with a PvP, PvE raiding guild. And then, what was it? Legion and BFA, I was mostly maining a DK and a warrior. That's when I was really pushing again to try to get rating in PvP.
But did you play these classes because they were good, or did you play them because you just wanted the experience of playing a warrior and a DK?
I played warrior DK because it was easy.
Okay, but easy is different than good, yeah.
Well, at the time they were also like they were powerful. So, but I was also target calling and stuff like that for RBGs, so that's why. Um, so yeah, call the target, death grip in, IBF, blinding sleet, off I went. Um, anyways, whatever. It like I'll say. That said, though, is I always still, personally in my brain, like related myself to my main Gerissar, which was my warlock. Uh, that said, I I would say I think a lot of people are still, they'll go to like the class that's easier because that's way when it comes to PvP. And especially like when you're talking your higher rating stuff, right? Like if you're trying to climb rating and that, you can generally get places with the class that you like to play and you're like your true and favorite. But if those are not meta, then trying to get groups is hard because people use tier lists way too seriously at even the lowest CR. And at the same time, trying to gain CR, trying to gain IO, when you have a class that is S tier, is just that much easier. The game is just easier to play because things just kind of fall over a lot easier.
Yeah.
Versus if you're playing the class you like to play, but it happens to be C tier, good luck getting a group to begin with. And then if you do get a group, it's a struggle to win because you're playing against S tier, and that's an uphill battle, right?
Yeah. I think one thing you said that I definitely agree with is I think people take top down information way too seriously, and like tier lists are part of that. And I personally, have I have blood on my hands. I've been making tier lists for what, 3 years now, pretty much. And so I mean, I'm definitely guilty of something, and I always feel like it's really touchy to make tier lists because I know that people are gonna sort of, again, take them way too literally and sort of assume that they need to bottleneck themselves into restrict themselves into playing a handful of classes in order to have fun with the game. And so yeah, I think there's a few different things going on here. I think definitely there is maybe some sort of incentive problem and some structural problems going on with the game itself, but I also think there's this like human problem when it comes to people wanting this, like people feeling pressured by something external to the game to be like to be on the cutting edge. They feel like if they're not trying, if they're not doing the things that are cutting edge, then they're setting themselves up for failure. Which is just and I know it's harder to find groups if you're not playing like an S tier class. I get that, but like I feel like people should still try. I feel like people should give the lower tier classes a chance. I maybe I just like being the underdog, but I don't mind being at a disadvantage. I think there's something kind of fun about it, me personally, but I know other people want to just win and have an easy time winning. And yeah, I think sometimes we get these perfect storms where you get a class that's easy to play, really powerful, and really fun, which is what Red Paladin was in 1005 or whatever. It checked all those
1007.
boxes.
Yeah.
1007. It was.
Let's be honest though, it's fun to win, and when you just push a button and you win, that's just fun.
It is. Yeah. I think a lot of people. There's also a lot of disagree. People disagree on what's fun in WoW. That's
Everybody gets enjoyment from different ways.
That's why I think everything circles back to Rogue Mage. That's why I think like Rogue Mage is really important for the game because it is a particular type of fun that you can't really experience with other comps. And I think to have a really healthy game, you need to have both sides. You need to have the offensive fun and you need to have the defensive fun. You need to have these two sort of the unstoppable force versus the immovable object. And I think people get joy from sort of slotting themselves into one of those roles. And I think, the Rogue Mage is the unstoppable force. And I think that's for me, that's the fun. But, other people, they want to stop the unstoppable force, and that's their fun. and I totally get that.
True.
Uh,
I mean, there's some people that take enjoyment out of taking the underdog and win, and if they can win with it, that struggle, they get pure enjoyment out of that because they were able to make it work.
And do you know what's the beautiful thing about World of Warcraft is you can be the underdog no matter what. If you're the rogue mage, you think you're the underdog. If you're not the rogue mage, you think you also think you're the underdog, right?
Sure.
Both the unstoppable force and the immovable object can play this role.
It's like, am I playing assassination where it's easy, or am I playing outlaw and it's hard?
Yes.
Outlaw arcane. Oh boy. Well. Oh man, that was a great conversation. I think we should actually move into our actual subject and analysis though. What do you think?
Sounds good.
I'm gonna light you up, sweet cheeks.
All right. So as much as I'm sure everybody listening really enjoyed that little cerebral exercise we just had about trying to figure out why people play the game the way they play it. The real conversation that I wanted to have, and I started this originally on Twitter and over on in a couple Discords actually, was the conversation about premades. Because, first and foremost, the reason is because I joined one. I joined a community that does premades on the Alliance side because I got so sick and tired of getting raffle stomped in BGs on certain nights. And then in doing so, I then they were talking about, people were showing some screenshots and links to some forum posts, and I realized just how many people are on the forums talking about this. So went outside, okay, let's go external. Let's find out in our community what people think. And I think, and you were saying you played some BGs. Out of the time that you do PV, that unrated PvP in Battlegrounds, in modern, I want to let's make this strictly modern, not classic. Have you run into any premades, do you think?
I'm sure I have, but I don't really feel it as much.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've actually, the place I noticed it the most, I believe, was actually in an Alterac Valley in the 40-man, believe it or not. That's when I kind of sort of was like, wow, this feels way too coordinated. But like, I think last night I was in a random battleground on my mage. That was Eye of the Storm. That might have been I might have been playing against a premade because it seemed a bit more organized than a typical random battleground. But yeah, I typically don't feel it that much. Maybe that's like an ego thing for me to say, but I'm just
I
maybe
think
I
it's
play
more
specific
in
roles.
Oh, maybe. I think it's more in epics though. I don't think it's as much in just regular randoms.
Gotcha. Yeah, then I've felt it in epics before, for sure.
So, when you play Battlegrounds, do you just solo queue, or do you like get a couple friends together and go in a party?
I just solo queue typically.
Okay. And do you expect what? And really, I think it's an expectation thing. What's your expectation of team makeup then? And are you queuing up honestly expecting that when you queue up, you feel that you have a 3 chance out of 4 that you're going to be up against a premade, or do you expect that that's like a 1 in 20 chance, and otherwise it's just going to be a bunch of random people just trying to run around and get the objectives done?
I think it's probably a bit of both. Like, I assume that there's going to be a partial premade maybe sometimes. I'm never expecting a full premade.
Fair.
So that's
yeah,
my point of view.
I'm sitting the same way. Like, generally when I queue up, I think like my first one I expect is just going to be complete mayhem randomness, and then usually as soon as I run into like a premade, I'm like, okay, it's premade time, and then I expect that I'm going to start running into premades more often. So I guess the only thing, like for me, running into a premade really sucks because it's almost like a guaranteed loss. The coordination is just too much. It becomes It becomes an impossible battle. Versus running with a pre-made, I love it because there's somebody leading and coordinating. There's a whole bunch of people that are following that because Lord knows people try to tell what to do and everybody just runs in their own direction anyways. But when you have a pre-made, you have at least a good portion of players doing the actual right objective.
Well, what I think is ironic is I think pre-mades have more strength in Epic Battlegrounds than they do in 10-mans. Because I mean, maybe I'm completely out of tune with the random BG community, but I really feel like with these Epic Battlegrounds, all it takes is a few people doing something right to win the BG. There's these sort of micro tasks you need to do throughout the map.
Yeah.
As long as you can do those well, you're at a much better you're in a much better position. Even though, like, if you run a pre-made in, say, Warsong Gulch, you're going to be taking up more of the slots, relative to the total number of slots. I still feel like individual players can have a big impact. Like if I were to go into a Warsong Gulch on my Boomkin or my Rogue, for instance, and I were to queue into a pre-made, I wouldn't feel completely like hopeless because I feel like my impact on the game can be higher on as a single player against that pre-made. Whereas if I was a rogue into a pre-made on Alteric Valley, I'm what can I do? I can't impact the game as much as I want to win.
True.
Right? Because I can't tank the boss, right? I can't solo that boss, but I can solo a flag carrier. I can do that.
Yeah,
I can make those plays.
Well, and you could generally is like maybe one or two players you're against versus in an epic. It's usually like a pack of 5 running around. You're not going to take that on by yourself. You're just going to, maybe piss them off for 5 seconds and then end up in a graveyard somewhere.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, I think that's really, I think the same crux is why people are so upset by all these pre-mades. I guess the thing that I wonder then is, should it be a solution where the devs make a change to the game, or should it be the solution be on the community side where people stop queuing up solely and actually play the MMO with people and join communities and then queue up with friends or even or acquaintances in this case? Because I think there's one person like, I don't have any friends. I just play by myself. I'm like, well, that's kind of unfortunate. You make some friends, but
yeah,
I don't know.
Maybe again, this is a kind of a problem with the LFG system where it's either you're going into everything solo or you need to find like a group, and there's no in between. There's no like there's no way to get you. Gosh, I feel like I'm slaughtering this explanation, but you either have the choice of playing like complete organized content with a group through LFG, joining a 5-man or 10-man, whatever it is, or you just press that join queue solo button. There's nothing in between, right? There's no like join like option to fast track your way into like a lobby that's being formed, without going through LFG. And maybe there needs to be something like that where you have this third option where you can just hit this button that says join pre-made group, and it throws you into a group with a pre-made that's like being formed or something like that, like randomly. I don't know.
So, fun fact, in LFG, there's actually a part for random BGs where you can make pre-mades. You can make 5 people parties there. And then there's also the quick join, where if you have somebody on either in your guild, in your BNet or your friends list, and they're queuing up, you can just click and join them. And then that way, you're kind of doing that. It's clunky.
Forget about the quick join, yeah.
Yeah. And it's clunky. And honestly, it's pretty fast. Like, you get the little blip, maybe you're doing something, and then when you go to join the person, they're already gone because either they dropped queue or the queue popped and they're into the instance and then you can't join them, right? So it's Well, yeah.
So the problem exists mostly in epic BGs. Is what
Yes.
that's what people are complaining about.
Yeah.
Um,
I have run into in regular randoms where there'll be like a group of players, usually 3, that are running around and just like completely creating, and they're running in a tight group. And usually I get the sense that they are friends, and usually it's like some sort of arena team where they're just having fun practicing and just obliterating people. And I felt that a lot of times, but I've never felt more than that in a 10v10, in a 15v15. Um, I think generally I see where they do with, I call it the death ball, where the enemy team just comes together and they just run at one objective, and then the defenders don't respond fast enough, and then it just creates this rant. They just keep running around, and because it's objective based, they take the objective and then they move on to the next objective. And by the time the defenders go back and retake that objective, they've moved on to the next, and they just raffle stomp the whole map.
well, here's a question: when you encounter a pre-made, like say in Aldrich Valley,
Yeah.
do the games go fast? Are they like the fast losses, or are they typically slow losses?
Honestly, it's random. I've had ones where like they're super fast losses, we get totally stomped, and it's like, okay, queue into the next game. And usually, like when you can really tell, like they'll do like a fast rush on something, a bunch of people die, and then especially on the alliance side, a whole bunch of people drop the BG and probably switch over to an alt and re-queue, waiting for that debuff to go away. For the lever debuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then generally then it's backfilled, and by that time now you have people backfilling in. They're halfway into a BG, and then that just goes super fast. And then I've seen ones where it's a fun fight, and then usually you end up, especially in Alterac Valley, then you end up in a turtle situation, and then everybody is there's a huge scrum for the turtle as it pushes back and forth from the bridge to the bunker. And that's a fun one, but it takes a really long time. But man, do you rack up honor.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I typically don't like to be in battlegrounds that wind up being stalemates. So I view battlegrounds as purely functional typically, like they're for something, for completing a quest or for farming honor, at the beginning of a season or something. I'm not really playing battlegrounds for enjoyment per se, which I think is why my experience of battlegrounds is perhaps different than a lot of other people, because a lot of people do battlegrounds for fun, right? But I'm purely utilitarian when it comes to battlegrounds, so I want them to end fast typically.
Apparently.
Either way. Yeah. I mean,
I've run into people like that where they're like, just leave the game, or just die, get this over. I want to get to the next one. I'm trying to farm honor. It's like, well, okay, so you're here for a single purpose, and it's like the people that drive fast on the highway and honk at you and flash your lights because you're not going as fast as they are in the fast lane.
Yeah, I think BGs are maybe a bit awkward like that, because you have two different groups of people with two different incentives. Whereas in arena or RBGs would be a better example. RBGs, you're there you're there to enjoy them, but there's also the sort of overall goal to win and have your rating go up. There's no rating in normal BGs, right? So you get people like me who are there to who enter the battleground just to be able to leave it. That's a good way, I think, of explaining it.
You're there to win, collect your points, and move on to because that's it's an end goal. It's a means to the end. You're not there for the enjoyment of the game. Honestly, I think really RBGs is kind of the same thing, where the crux behind running an RBG is to win, and the bonus to that is you get a chest, you get conquest, you get some honor. But if you don't win and you're not moving up your CR, then it just doesn't feel good. right? I
Maybe
think
we
it's
need
similar to Arena.
maybe we need a rating system for random
Well,
battlegrounds.
and that's I'm kind of wondering, like, I wonder if they should have like some sort of an MMR, a hidden MMR system. I remember there was discussion that they were going to implement something, or that somebody assumed that there was a like a hidden MMR into BGs to
I'm
kind of help
pretty
filter that.
sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's hidden MMR in skirmishes. I'm
I think so.
75% sure. There, at least there was at one point. I know
Mhm.
for a fact there was at one point. I'm pretty convinced it still exists because I notice when I play skirms on my main characters, for instance, they're
Mhm.
very sweaty, like super, like oh my god, they're almost as difficult as like normal arena matches. But if I were to play skirms like on an alt, I don't get as difficult matchups.
Hmm.
And I think it's because they do something internal, and actually, what's funny, some anecdotal evidence back that up is back in the day. I don't remember what expansion this was. It probably was Legion,
Mhm.
or it might have been Warlords of Draenor, because I used to play a lot of Twinks, right? And just for the audience listening at home, it's level 19s, right? Not something else. And we used to have like on our website, XP off was the main hub
Yep,
for
still there. It's still working.
Yes, still there. There used to be an arena ladder, and you're like, what? Well, how could you have rated arenas as a level 19? What it was is it took some API data from the armory
Mhm.
and used that to make like a rating system. And I think it was actually based on something that was like Blizzard internal that you couldn't see, right? So the XP off would fetch this like hidden MMR from the armory, or
Huh.
from the game data,
Yep.
and give everyone their rating.
Hmm.
So it definitely there is something like that has existed before and probably still exists today.
It
I'm
probably
guessing.
does. Yeah. Chat's agreeing with you. They say that there's supposed to be a hidden MMR for skirms,
Yeah.
which would make sense. I mean, um, I wonder. So, I guess here's a question. And I think you kind of answered this, but I want to be upfront about it. If you were playing BGs, or especially epic BGs, and you kept running into this base wall, this wall of pre-made enemies that were just raffle stomping you, or taking the BG under hostage and just farming HKs and not actually doing objectives, so it just wouldn't end.
Yeah.
Um, like are and which is really hard to do because the BGs aren't set up to, like, there's like multiple ways of winning, right? So I'm just wondering, like, would that make you quit playing, or would that make you say, all right, screw this, find a community and join that, so then you're also queuing as pre-made, so then you have a better chance of living or surviving and winning, rather than just continually solo queuing?
I think okay, that's a good question. I think it depends on for me, I would stop queuing, but if my main form of content in the game was random BGs, then I would try to find a community. That
Hmm.
and I know that and again I'm gonna circle back to level 19s. I rarely queued level 19s if I wasn't in a pre-made group. I would sometimes solo queue, but I had way more fun and everything was way more cohesive when I was in an organized group, and I enjoyed
Hmm.
that way better than solo queue.
Yeah.
So based on my own experience, if I viewed random BGs as as my primary content, then yeah, I would find a pre-made.
Okay.
But I could see how some people might want to quit, if they couldn't find a pre-made or if they didn't want to do that. I could see that.
Yeah, I see a lot of people that when they in the forums when they talk about it, they call it cheating. They call it a whole bunch of other words. Uh, yeah,
Yeah.
some very passionate responses, I'll say, talking about how it's ruining the game and that. And I think it's because their expectation is when they queue up to any sort of a battleground that it's it's very mayhem. It's chaotic. There's some people that do objectives. You can run off and do objectives and make a difference, or you can run off and kill a bunch of people just for fun. And usually it's like, you versus another. Maybe it's like you and 3 other people because you all ran in the same direction and you killed that one person, and that that's that enjoyment feel, which is much different than running in and it taking running into a wall of enemy players that just melt you, and then you're sitting on a graveyard queuing and then dying because they're farming the graveyard. Which I know isn't as easy to do for epics, but you get the idea of what I mean.
It's always funny to me what people say is ruining the game, because it's usually things that have been in the game forever,
Yeah.
If you ever watched Swifty Incredible Warrior Tricks, that whole video is pretty much him and premating with his guild. It's not, and premating has been around since BGs have been around. It's nothing new.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not saying that it's not a problem for some people, but I'm just just think it's funny when people say this is ruining the game, because whatever it is usually has been around.
Indeed. I think one thing that's really interesting is Merc mode has shown up for the Alliance and allowed for Alliance players to actually switch over to Horde, which generally hasn't happened. Generally, the balance was the way where it was only the Horde because there's more of them to Merc over to Alliance to get faster queues. But they opened it up so now Alliance can Merc over to the Horde and join these premades, or just to get their wins at least, rather than okay, it's a faster queue, but you're losing a bunch, so you're getting some honor, but you're still not getting your bonus conquest for the win. You're not getting the bonus box for the win and all that other stuff. So
yeah, I mean, is Alliance typically considered the better faction for BGs? I know that's kind of always no one can seem to agree.
So the win loss ratio overall is actually pretty even across the board.
Yeah.
Various BGs though have benefits depending on which faction you are. Like some you can get to some objectives faster depending on where your starting point is, and then also like some for flag maps especially, some of the defending points are easier depending on which, or easier to defend depending on which faction you are. I find the typical argument is that on the Alliance loses more, but their queues are faster. So that's like the trade-off. That's not always true. But at the same time, like if you're playing Alliance, chances are if you're going to be doing epics, you're going to be running into Ruin Gaming or SAS. And when they're premating into an epic, if you aren't in a premade as well, you're not going to win. Like there's no way. And that's because they play, especially Ruin Game is such a huge organization that chances are all 40 enemies are Ruin. Maybe 5 aren't, but I mean it's like that kind of a level. And then they're using add-ons where so they use add-ons to queue up together. Not the same as what they used to be. There used to be like the Alterac Valley group maker. I can't remember what it was called now.
Yeah, I vaguely remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. AVLFG or whatever, where you signed up and then a person pushed a button and everybody all like insta-queued it, all automated the whole thing. That's not there anymore. Now you're sitting in a group. Everybody has like BG Commander on. It will, okay, 1, 2, 3, Q. Everybody pushes, every team leader pushes Q, and then into the BG. As the Qs pop, it's like, oh, pop, pop, pop. Okay, that's all us, and in we go. So that's a little bit different. Where was I going with this? I feel like with Ruin Gaming, they're big enough that chances are, they may have like multiple, like not just 40 but multiple teams running to the point where out of the however many teams are playing or queuing, 8 of them actually get the same queue pop and end up in the same dungeon or battleground, and trying to fight against that is hard. And so murking as an alliance player into that is about the only way you're going to get your wins, I feel.
Rune Gaming is Horde, or their
Yeah,
alliance?
they're primarily Horde. Same with
Okay.
SAS. There's a few alliance guilds or alliance communities, but I haven't seen nearly as many. And that's on the NA side. I don't know what it's like for the EU side. Obviously, I kind of wish Jake was here for that conversation, but or even Doctor. I should have gotten Doctor Owen on this. That would have been good.
With that one, I linked that stream that one time of that Russian guy who
Yeah.
streams himself doing these pre-made groups or whatever, and I think that's Alliance that he's playing on.
Yeah, he was Russian. Yeah.
Yeah, doing those crazy strats in the Ashran or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, but like
somebody's telling me I'm wrong. Somebody's telling me that Ruin was Alliance.
yeah, I was gonna say I thought Rune was Alliance.
Maybe I'm wrong. Okay, then maybe it's just SAS that's Horde. I mean, nothing stops a bunch of Ruin gamers from murking and going Horde anyways. But I was gonna say actually for add-ons, another one I ran into this one. It was called Top Target. This is a really fun one, and so the only thing, as far as I can tell, not everybody has to have it, but everybody who wants to see the icons on the screen needs to have it. And so how it works is it will put an overlay onto the screen. So when a whole bunch of people are targeting the same person, the same enemy, then it like puts a big square over top of that person. So you click on them. And so what it does is it creates directed fire is really what it is.
Yeah.
So you can like target a person, and then like let's say 3-4 people target the same person, big square shows up, a whole bunch of other people target that person and push a button, and there's no way you can heal against that, especially in a 40-man. Like if you have 20 players all pushing one button against a player, like how you can't heal that, right? And
yeah,
so,
there's what's interesting. Sorry, I actually should let you finish.
No, I was done. Go.
There is a forum post on the competitive WoW subreddit about how Warcraft logs, or whatever the logging website is, the main one people use, has a new standalone damage meter that operates outside of World of Warcraft. So what it does is there's an option in the interface to enable detailed combat logging. And it's not an add-on, it's a program. What this program does is it reads the combat log and sends that data to this program, and you can have it on the second monitor or whatever. What this add-on, so because it runs external to WoW, it's not reliant on like Lua, for instance, it's not restricted by whatever Lua is restricted by. So it can do things that add-ons potentially can't. And one example of that is read detailed information about player positioning. And so, I don't know if you remember that whole controversy over that add-on AVR back in the day in Wrath Lich King, like a draw on your screen. So because this is not an add-on, it's a program on your computer that's reading the combat log, it can overlay stuff on top of your screen that add-ons potentially can't. So that just made me, what you just said reminded me of this new sort of what World Force Raiders are probably going to be doing in the next the next race is use this add-on to make things that are basically weak auras on steroids, because weak auras is limited by what Lua can do.
Yeah.
It can tell you if you're like gonna get hit by a mechanic, but it doesn't know where you are. Like it doesn't know your positioning, but the combat log knows your positioning. So yeah, there's probably some function for that sort of stuff in these VGs too in the future. So if people are worried about getting targeted now, wait until the future when you have this program who can read the combat log and tell you a lot more potentially. So So yeah.
What would that look like for arenas?
So I'm always so Jax and I discovered this when because there's a website called WoW Arena Data. Let me see what it's called. WoW Arena Logs. So it's same thing. You download this program, it reads the combat log, it uploads that data to this website. You can see how the game went. Okay.
Yeah, it has little
So
dots moving around the map too, right?
so when
Yeah.
we were looking into that, and we were like, wait a second, this shows a rogue moving in stealth. How did it know where the rogue was? And so we think that potentially positional data for stealth could maybe, it wasn't clear if the add-on actually knew where the rogue was. It might have been guessing, or if the program actually knew where the stealth rogue was. So potentially there could be some foul play like that, where these add-ons could maybe show you where a stealth player is, which would be really good in BGs, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't know. There's a lot that these things can do that could be useful from
Wow.
PvP.
Oh my.
There is some limitations though.
Well,
Like,
yeah.
I guess there's no way of knowing who someone is casting a spell on. Like, if you cast a polymorph and it's a focus polymorph, but you're targeting someone, you can only see, like, the combat log will only say who you're targeting, not necessarily who the spell is going on. So there's some like internal limitations to that. And I think Blizzard probably knows, like, they know that this advanced combat logging exists, so I'm sure they have some ways of restricting functionality so it's not completely exploitable. But who knows, you know? There might be some holes that people are looking to exploit.
Wow. Which makes me wonder if that's what bots are using, because there's like the way people play with bots now, like it's like I can almost tell what the game
Well,
what's happening in the game before anything happens.
I have a tinfoil hat conspiracy that there are Blizzard AI that participate in group content. And I have no proof of that, but just based on my anecdotal experience, like for instance, queuing skirmishes, you run into some patterns. You definitely see some patterns in play that you typically don't see with like normal players, even normal players who are botting. So I have my suspicions that we are already dealing with Blizzard bots in forms of group content. And who knows? I mean, I'm quite the, you know, I think what's it called, Comp Stomp is more revealing, is quite revealing about maybe what's going on behind the scenes.
Maybe.
This was my tinfoil hat, you know, and I have just pure speculation. But
Well,
if I had to guess, that's what's happening.
I remember Mike Morheim talking about DeepMind joining Blizzard in making AI. I believe it was meant for StarCraft 2 primarily, but it was Blizzard across the board. So I mean, it's possible that there's AI, DeepMind AI bots in BGs, in Heroes of the Storm maps, Overwatch. Like, it's very possible.
Yeah,
It's Skynet, man. They're gonna take over Azeroth.
Even back in the day where, you know, I don't want to talk too much about. I always feel weird talking about TOS stuff, but you know, even back in the day when most players are breaking the TOS with their honor buddies or whatever.
Yep.
I mean, the bots weren't bad. They weren't,
No.
and that was like just a program, right? And you know, what was it? Glider was the big original one. Those bots weren't terrible, and those are just being like, that was back in the day. That was before deep learning AI. They, you know, of course they were silly sometimes, and there was a video I remember Zyback made of Eye of the Storm where almost everyone but him was a bot on both teams. Like, he was like the only normal player, and it's so goofy looking. I'll link it in this stream if I can.
Yeah.
But I mean,
That's
again, my
funny.
point is that was 10 years ago. Technology has gone way better, and I am quite certain that we are already playing against Blizzard AI and BGs.
That's very possible. It makes sense. I mean, it'd be a great way for them to get that a lot of that data, not just data scraping after the fact, but like right instantaneous in the game moment. So, oh yeah.
Yeah.
I will not click that right now because otherwise I'll start playing over the stream. But if anybody wants, go to timestamp 7:08 on the, I guess that's local time. But yeah, 7:09 in the VOD. You'll see it.
You'll see a full bots versus bots from back in Warlords of Draenor.
Oh wow, yeah, that's wow, back in the day. All right.
Anyway,
Yeah, that's awesome. Is there anything?
DC?
Pardon me? No, I'm here.
I must have DC for a little bit. Sorry.
Oh my. Okay. It's the Twitch didn't like you linking.
They're trying to interfere. Who knows?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I guess back to the whole pre-made conversation. I don't know, like I remember running into pre-mades and being upset. But I think part of the upsetness was not being in a like feeling that it was an unfair advantage that somebody was coordinated in a BG. But now that I've joined a community and I'm also coordinated on my side, it is much more enjoyable. Personally, I like that way. I get where people are upset if they are just, they're running solo queue and they're assuming that it's just going to be solo queue on all sides. I do like the idea of joining up with some friends, at least in a 5-person, and just running around. It's so much fun. I think the hardest part to that, though, is if you're going to make a 5-person team of your own, you have to make sure you have a healer, because otherwise it's like the system gets a little funky, and you'll end up with like groups where there's only like one healer because that's the only spot that was left because other people are partying in that. I remember, actually, I should point this out on the Discord. It was mentioned by Dr. Ownlord. He was mentioning if you go into a battleground and when you pull up the groups, you'll see and look for the crowns. And there's like the one solid crown, and that's the actual instance leader. So that's the leader of the BG. But there'll be a whole bunch of like mini crowns, and those ones are people that have queued as premades, queued as a party. And so you'll get a hint there of how many. If it's an actual premade, then you'll see like a whole bunch of little crowns. If not, then that said, if they still start raffle stomping you, chances are somebody's actually giving some coordinated advice and everybody's following it.
So I think what I always like to do as a content creator is have a takeaway for people. And
why do you gotta be so sensible, man?
And so, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the takeaway from this conversation would be, if you're upset about premades, try to find one, maybe,
Yeah.
I think, because I agree with you, playing in a premade, and this is going from my experience playing level 19s, not the same, but similar, is that it's really fun. You get the best of both worlds. If you're there to stomp, noobs, you can stomp noobs in a premade. You get to have that experience, but you can also queue in other premades, and then you get in an intense fight, and that's fun as well. So you might as well, if you're a BG player, I think, try to get into one of these communities. It's fun, you can get friends that way, and it makes the experience of queuing BGs, I think, way more enjoyable. I definitely agree. Like, it's a completely different experience, and I think a better experience no matter what your goals are. Unless your goal is to struggle, if you absolutely hate yourself and you do not, you want to have as least fun as possible and be miserable, then don't queue premades.
And some people do like to be the underdog. Period. Like,
yeah. I was saying earlier I like to be the underdog, but there are some limitations to that. If I lose over and over, I mean that's not being an underdog. That's just not
Yeah.
being calculated.
Not learning from the mistake. I think the thing there is, I think you're right. The way to find premades is queue up and you'll run into them on your faction side. You can do it that way. Pay attention to instance chat. Another one, they're in the LF community. If you go to the communities tab and go searching for PvP, there's a whole bunch of communities in there. There's actually in-game communities for various arena brackets broken down.
Really?
Like, yeah, 0 to 14.99, 1500 to, I want to say 17 to 19 to 2, all that. So if you're looking for, if you don't want to just sit in LFG waiting for somebody to queue up, you go there. Chances are you'll find people. There's a wild number of, and those are just open communities, and that's not including, there's a bunch of closed ones out there too. Chances are, I'm going to throw this out there, if there's a community that's closed off and not easy to find, you might not want to join it, because chances are they're closed for a reason, and they're probably not in line with the social contract. Just saying that.
Fun fact,
mhm.
by the way, speaking about there being a community for everyone, I've noticed on Moonguard, my time I've spent on Moonguard, there are evoker communities. Usually you have
What?
dragons are hanging out with other dragons. It's what I've learned from roleplay is that World of Warcraft has an infinite amount of ways you can experience it. Whatever your niche is, you can find other people who enjoy the same things you do and have the same goals you do. Whether it's
True.
queuing BGs or hanging out in the Stormwind Park with a bunch of dragons, you can find your community in World of Warcraft. It's the best. That's the best part about the game.
I love that part about the game. And you're not wrong. It blows me away though. I shouldn't be surprised, but yet I'm surprised that there's a evoker community on Moonguard. That's I love it. I absolutely love it. Oh man,
Yes.
I love this game. Moonguard represent. No, I'm not part of Moonguard, but that's okay.
That's another thing too. I just want to say something really quick. If you've never played on a roleplay server, make a character on a roleplay server. Transfer one of your characters to an RP server. It is a completely different way of experiencing WoW, and it's really fun.
Yeah.
Even if you think you're the serious PvPer and you don't have time for that, you trust me, you do. Moonguard PvPers are their own thing, and it's fun to experience it for sure.
Indeed. Emerald Dream was good for that too. I'm on Cenarian Circle, which was a RP server and still has some RP, but it's not the same. It's nowhere near to that level. It never reached that level.
Yeah, I think right now it's Moonguard and Wormrest Accord, I believe, are the two big servers.
Yeah, I believe so. Emerald Dream kind of slowed down a bit.
Yeah, I think they went to Moonguard. A lot of those players went to Moonguard.
Yeah, which happened. There's been a lot of consolidation. So, I think though, rather than talking about changing servers, do you want to talk about the one thing we change?
Sure. Yeah.
All right, off to you there, Big. What's the thing you change?
Well, okay, this is going to sound like maybe a bit narcissistic, but I just want to point this out. I hate to bash on Blizzard, but sometimes you need to. So SkillCap just made a video for the official LoL esports channel. So
Okay.
the Riot channel. And I've been seeing Blizzard start to interact a bit more with the esports communities, where, like, for instance, they've had a lot of Liquid content on their main channel. And I think they had a video about Echo. It would be really cool if Blizzard did something for PvP like that. doesn't have to be skill cap, but it would be nice, obviously. Work with the creators and the organizations to make cool content about PvP for their main channel, because and I hate when people compare Riot and Blizzard, because Riot, sometimes the comparisons aren't fair. But if they're willing to, if Riot's willing to make a video that features skill cap stuff, I think it'd be really cool if Blizzard did do the same for PvP stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I would change.
I agree with you. Can you imagine if there was a weekly, well, there was even like the daily, the PvP clips, that YouTube channel, like even if it was like something like that, but it was like a weekly of like the best PvP clips of the week from YouTube and Twitch channels, that would be, I think that I'd sit and watch that, guaranteed.
Yeah, so I linked the video down in the chat. So Skill Cap made every part of this. They were part of the production through and through, and this is an educational video. Same thing that you'd get for on the Skill Cap channels, just on the official LoL channel. I think something like this would be really cool.
Yeah.
For the WoW esports scene.
I don't disagree. Or even if it's just take some streamers and do like a rotating on the front page on the BNet app, or heaven forbid, the longest running PvP podcast in World of Warcraft.
There you go. Yeah.
I wish. Well, that would be awesome. Actually, I don't even know what I'd change. Actually, no. I think this is the thing. I think there should be some sort of a better way of showing people whether they're up against a big pre-made or not, or just like a bunch of solo queue people. So that as soon as there is the initial scrum, the initial clash that always happens in a battleground, and everybody instantly explains it as, "Oh, I'm up against a pre-made. That's why we lost that." When it isn't. Like there's times when it's just not that. It's just the fact that the team you're with is bad, and people just aren't doing. People aren't pushing buttons they're supposed to. There's no CC. Casters are in the back. There's healers in the back free casting. Like there's no way. Everybody's like just hitting different targets, right?
Mm-hmm.
I wish that there was some way to help people recognize, like, yes, the reason why you died there was because you're up against a coordinated team of 5 different leaders that queued into the same time, and they all targeted you at the same time. That's why you died. I think because there's a difference there, and people automatically seem to run to the argument the reason why they lost is because they didn't have the gear, or they didn't have it was something external to other than it's not the fact that there was lack of coordination and people weren't doing what they needed to do for PvP.
Good goal. I think it was a good good thing to change. WoW is definitely in need of more information somehow. I think it's just all these gaps. The new player experience is maybe a bit confusing at times. And anything to make that a bit easier to understand.
Well, especially on PvP itself is a race of information. Like if you don't have all the information to make the decision, like you're not gonna do it. It was even it was on the Skill Cap Discord there. What's his name? Steezo. He's also from the World of PvP Discord, and he was commenting how over the past 5-6 months of playing World of Warcraft and following the videos and being there and asking questions and learning from his mistakes, he's improved as a MM hunter, and really enjoying the game now, and being like, yeah, I see stuff happening now, and it's been 5 or 6 months, but like they've gone. I think it went from 1400 to 1600 or something like that, or 17 now.
Yeah, I've seen I've been there the whole time that he's been asking questions. That they've been asking questions. It's just kind of funny. Like initially, the questions they were asking, I was like, wow, this person must be new to the game. Like, they're like asking what a focus target was. I think that was one of their original questions.
Mhm.
And they kept on hearing people say focus and they didn't know what that meant. And so I've definitely answered some of their questions. That's cool. I didn't know that they're a completely new player, but it makes sense,
Mhm.
and that they've been improving. Because I see he likes to link a lot of screenshots of his
Yeah,
progress.
but he's
And that
asking. They're asking questions and getting the feedback and learning from it. I don't know how new of a player they are, but I think they were like capping out at like 1450 for the past few seasons and or however long they've been playing, and then they're like finally they came to skill cap looking for the information and are getting it right because they weren't getting the information other places. So
Yeah, we have our Ask a Pro forum too, which is
yep,
a really cool resource. I'm really proud of that. You
but
can
but you have to be a subscriber for that first, right?
you have to be a subscriber to post questions, but you can search through already answered questions. You can
Mm-hmm.
view the channel as a non-subscriber. But
Okay. But if somebody
so
used
yeah,
our affiliate link, and then they'd be able to get access to that, right?
they could, yes. In the show notes. Yeah.
I'm just gonna drop that into Twitch chat right now, just in case anybody's wondering. Go there, you get a discount. It helps us out. It gets you a cheaper subscription, and then you too can ask a pro.
That's right.
But yes, I think that's the biggest thing is the information that's presented by default is not the right information and definitely not enough information to make the right decision. And so then having to know all these other things you need to do in order to be able to get that right information is important. Definitely when you're into like an epic BG against 40 people, it's just too much information. Like it definitely needs to be different representation. But again, you know, are you a totally capped out conquest geared player with a person that's walking in with some greens because they just finished leveling and they're level 70? How do you tell the difference other than looking at a health pool, right? Like
Right.
it's, I don't know. All right, I think that's we've figured that. Let's get into the WoW PvP news. There's quite a bit to talk about. If we actually want to talk about the stuff we didn't talk about last episode because we ended early. If not, there's still enough to talk about. So let's do this.
All right. Who ordered up an extra large can of whoop ass?
And I am talking in circles a bit tonight. All right, so WoW PvP news. I guess a couple things we didn't talk about last episode, and we'll cover a bit more today, which is the MDI Cup stuff. So Group A, that was on the 23rd. Perplex took the first place, and Mandatory took second. Group B, on the 30th of July, was NA's Last Hope took the first place. Legendary took second. And then the Group C, which just ended, was Echo, and last minute with Echo taking first place. Mitch Jones hosted a Mac Gora duel tournament with Zaryu over on the PTR. This was at the tail end of the classic PTR for the hardcore servers. So it was level 20 only duels, and the two of them, Mitch Jones and Zaryu, posted a $1,500 prize pool for that. It was I didn't actually watch it, but I'm assuming it must have been. Dual tournaments are always fun. I'll say that.
Yeah.
All right, quick congrats to Guzo for taking the W and on their rogue, so they won. And I think that's. Oh, and then obviously, if anybody didn't pay attention to the AWC Season 2 Grand Finals last weekend, Echo took first place over on the EU, and Team Liquid took first place in NA with a very, I want to say, tearful, a very emotional interview at the end with Sidu. So
Yeah, and probably the closest Game 7 I've ever seen.
that was amazing.
I mean, I think that was everything you could possibly have hoped for.
the
you know, as a
storyline
Sea-Doo
alone.
fan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so is that the first win that Chuck has gotten since they won BlizzCon? I want
I
to
mean, I
say,
think the first like super major win, I believe. I mean, they've had I think in some of the weekly cups they've definitely
well,
won.
yeah, I mean like grand finals. Like,
Yeah, well, you know, the as the shoutcasters kept saying, I think Brain's team, Luminosity, had won the previous 5
yes.
world championships.
Yeah.
So, you know, yeah, and so for that in that case, it was, I believe, Sea-Doo's, well, the first time any team has won in NA over Luminosity in a while. I mean, Echo has had a pretty insane streak too, but they did lose the Shadowland Season 1 finals to Tony's team. I don't remember what
Yeah.
they're called.
To my way.
But yeah. So, yeah, the Titans of NA have seemed to
fallen.
be dethroned.
Indeed.
And I mean, there's some more news with. I mean, should we cover the news with that? I guess
Yeah.
the sad news.
Well, I guess we should probably cover it right now since it leads into it, which is
Yeah.
the unfortunate side that Brain, the world renowned healer to Luminosity Gaming or Kawhi, has announced that at the end of that was it. Really, he was saying the team's been demotivated. They're suffering from burnout, and I don't blame them. I mean, Jesus, 5 years running as the number one team on AWC, trying to keep that up must have taken quite the toll. And I think you can kind of see it in the gameplay for the 4 cups for NA leading up to this grand finals. They kind of felt tired, like some of the mistakes they were making and some of the gameplay just wasn't to the same level that they were making in their first couple cups and seasons. So
Yeah.
it's unfortunate.
I mean, if there's any, I follow Super Smash Bros. And there's a player named Mango who is considered by many to be the greatest of all time. What he said on stream yesterday, I mean, the difficulty of, it wasn't yesterday. Anyway, the difficulty of playing competitively in Smash recently is you have to bring something new to every single tournament because the bar keeps on going higher and higher. And this is something like Vinruki always says on the broadcast, like the competition every year just keeps on getting better. And so if you want to stay ahead, you have to really put in a lot of work.
Yep.
And surely that gets exhausting after a while. You just want to chill.
Yeah. Well,
I definitely think.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I definitely think to be on like the cutting edge and to win these tournaments, you have to be very, very dedicated. As much as Twitch chat would like to think they could win these tournaments, right? I mean, it's not that simple, right? There's a lot that goes into tournament prep and a lot of mental game involved in these tournaments as well.
Very much so. Well, I think like if you look at the hours that they put in to get the winnings and you calculate the winnings to that, like it's below minimum wage how much they're paying themselves for getting a win. And honestly, you see it regularly. Like case in point, Team Liquid at the time, formerly Method, when they won BlizzCon, and then the following season it rolled around. I think it was like end of November, break for December, January, right back into Cup number 1, and their gameplay wasn't, because they'd been taking a big break because of the amount of effort they put in to win BlizzCon, and then Cup 1 they looked like 1,800 level players playing in AWC. It was and I get it. Like I don't hold it against them whatsoever. I'm just I wonder if there's something, if there's anything that can be done to help these players learn, because I think it goes to another conversation I was having with some other players, but the conversation about the professionalism of WoW esports, and how much, like, who's actually a professional WoW esports player or who's actually an amateur. Because I would argue that there's a very few number of people that play in the AWC that are truly professional, and I'd say the rest are basically what you consider an amateur in any other traditional sport, with
Oh,
the amount of support that they're getting. Like, even I don't think the organizations are even really giving them that much support, other than some recompense, and and at the same time, then the player has to stream a certain amount, right? Like, I don't think there's much other support that those orgs are giving them.
yeah. I think it's just Liquid and Echo, and to some degree Luminosity. I don't know how involved Luminosity actually is in World of Warcraft. But yeah, I mean, and previously Method, right? I mean, that was
Yep.
the big one back in the day. So
They're
yeah,
getting back
I
up
think
there, but
if you're not on those two rosters, then yeah, I think you are kind of an amateur. If you're not streaming, I guess like Golden Guardians. I don't know. I mean, they're all streamers. Um, I don't think WizK streams as much as the other three, but I mean, they're I think they're those Absurge and Peekaboo. They're content people. You know,
Yeah.
they're good with content for sure. Um, so I think that's like kind of the route you have to go now. Like you either lean 100% into the professional, esports player. Like I don't know who would be a good example of that. Uh, Sam I am, I guess Sam I am probably. I don't think he does stream, but anyway, you have to either lean into content or you have to lean 100% into tournaments, and I think it's really difficult to balance in between. Do anything in between.
Yep.
So
No,
it's
definitely.
not easy.
Well, especially again, it's a war of attrition of information. So if you're streaming your main gameplay, you're giving away all your tricks. Then
Yeah.
you don't want to do that. So then you're limiting your content, or else you play for content. In which case, you're not playing nearly to the level you need to be practicing at in order to be the best at BlizzCon. Hence why I don't think we've ever, Luminosity Gaming really didn't stream at all, because I don't know. It's
They did for a very short period of time.
yeah.
I remember at the beginning of Shadowlands, there's Cerulean was streaming a lot, Brain was streaming a lot, but outside of that, they've kind of been hidden in the
Exactly.
shadows.
Yeah, which is unfortunate, because man, I wish they stream more. But again, it's like I said, it's a balance. As you said, it's a balance. Speaking of balance, hot fixes. So as always, there's a bunch of hot fixes happening. Most recently, there's been some bugs with Restoration Druid, Frost Mage,
Yeah, they fixed a
Mistweaver,
bug
and
that I was really enjoying. Because you could life bloom and moonkin form as a druid, and I remember discovering I was like, "Dude, this is amazing. I thought it was like part of the game, but I guess it's been a bug this whole time, and I'm kind of sad about that. Also, they nerfed me. They decided to nerf Resto Druid, but then they gave him some treants coming up, so that's cool.
that's coming. Yeah, it's not in yet.
Yeah.
And then there's class balancing back on the 7th. I think they're still waiting. I think this is the neat one. So for a while there, they put out a class balance, like, hey, we're gonna do some class balancing, and there's nothing about PvP. So all of a sudden, all the PvPers would get on, in forums and on Twitter and be like, hey, what, you're gonna break the, oh my gosh, this meta's gonna get so broken by this. And then, when it actually came out, like right before, there'd be like a little caveat saying, not in PvP, not. So this one, they started off with, except where noted, all changes will be offset so they do not apply to PvP. Which I think they did, except for which class was there's like one class where they didn't. I want to say it was Mage.
Well, it was like Mark's Hunter, I think, and Mage, where the communic, like, I know Lika and Jax looked into that, and
yeah. I want to say it was like, yeah, I think it was mage where there was a decrease, like a bunch of damage got decreased, and then it actually went through for PvP as well. It wasn't countered, so it was like all the buffs got countered, but the nerfs didn't. Oh yeah, somebody's saying outlaw. Thank you. So yeah, I guess outlaw rogue. No, outlaw says 5% increase in damage, auto attack increased by 5% will also affect PvP. So that was noted. Maybe that's an edit after the fact. Anyways, either way, I thought that was because then like a bunch of people didn't see that. They didn't expect to look for that. They just went down to where, okay, where's the PvP stuff? Oh, this. And they saw a bunch of stuff. They're like, oh my gosh, stuff's going to get broken. No. It's not listed as there's no thing about PvP at the end, so it's nerfed. You're good. You're fine.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's some good changes all around. I think, Unholy got some buffs. Guardian Druid got nerfed. Oh shoot, actually, yeah, sorry. Unholy got buffed in PvE only. My bad. What else was there? We're just talking. Where was it? So Holy got some PvP nerfs. So like Righteous Judgment and Consecration got a little bit of a nerf. Like I said, Outlaw Rogue got a slight buff. Discipline. This is funny. After our conversation with Kearney and talking about how they keep doubling down on atonement healing, and here it is again, like they're buffing atonement healing again. So now it's 40% of damage done is atonement healing.
Hey, if you're a disc priest right now, the number one rated player on EU in 2v2 is actually disc priest, and they're a full damage build, like guns blazing, every talent that could possibly increase your damage, they have it, and they doing quite well. So if you don't like disc priest in 3v3, try some 2v2, and then you can put that attunement healing to work.
But what's the time? Like they must have like a 3-minute game, because a full damage build, you don't have the mana to fulfill that. So if I'm not mistaken, you have like a 3-minute time frame to win, or you're done.
The craziest thing about their build, I don't know if this is like true, but by default they don't even have their offensive dispel spec'd. So presumably they're just MDing to dispel anything offensive, which is crazy to me. Like
that's insane.
Surely that must be a mistake on their part, but yeah, if you look at the EU ladder, it's a disc priest sitting comfortably up top, and I think they played with the feral druid. So put that disc priest to work in the 2v2 bracket, and you'll have fun.
All right. And now I want to dust off my dual.
Full damage. Don't stop.
Yeah. Just go Mongo PvP disc priest. I'm trying to think what else is there. There's nothing else that really jumps out. I want to say there was something else, but I can't remember what it is now.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, so that's it for the hot fixes. Here's a neat one. Did you see what Zenlin tried to do with Priest?
Yeah, that's that brought me back to some old PvP videos. There was a rogue by the name of Buddhist who used to make a lot of PvP videos, and I believe he has a dueling video doing the same thing, where he duels someone then types out all the spells.
Oh my gosh.
Infamously too, there's been a few, like back in the day, there was some BM Hunter videos where it was a one button BM Hunter. I'll link that too. That just had every ability in a giant cast sequence macro. And I think they got pretty high rated.
I love it.
So yeah, it's a funny little thing. I'll try to find the Buddhist video too.
Okay,
it's goofy.
Man, the number of links you're dropping into Twitch chat. This is if I was missing, come over, watch the VOD next time. That's all I gotta say. All right.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, if anybody hasn't watched, Zenlin didn't take his own priest. He made a whole fresh priest, leveled it up, took him into RSS, and played just by typing casting spells by typing / commands. So literally, he has a clip in his Twitter, but he literally like he moves, he plants feet, slash cast space, flash heal, enter, flash, and then same thing like slash cast, and apparently made it to 1420 CR in rated solo shuffle. So
Not bad.
I think that's pretty amazing. And that was like one sitting too. Like I don't think that's not over a week or so. Oh, or maybe it's over a few days. But and the other one, Blade's Edge. Have you fallen through Blade's Edge? We may know why.
I did that to someone.
Did you?
Yes.
You're so toxic. Why would you do that?
Twice. I mean, I didn't know I was doing it. I played my mage, and I knocked a Mistweaver. I was talking in the beginning of the podcast. I 1v1 to Windwalker Monk. So I was playing against double Monk. They killed my partner, and then the Mistweaver laughed at my partner. He went up and laughed. I knocked him, and he fell through the map, and so then it was a 1v1. So I mean, it was a bit of karma. Like he disrespected my partner, and then I DC'd him and then killed his partner after a lengthy duel.
That's funny.
So yeah, that day I was DCing so many people with my knock. I didn't know why, but now I know. I was like, why are all these people DCing? Yeah. And I didn't know it was my knock. So that was good. Good for me. I got to abuse that. Got some points.
I can't believe you did that, Big. You're so toxic. Oh my gosh. No, I honestly though. So now that it's known, I hope there's some call outs right now to the devs to take the map out of circulation, fix it, bring it back in. But if you're in Blade's Edge, and somebody goes to do a knock on you, you will more than likely get pushed through the map and end up down in the middle of Azeroth somewhere, looking up at the wireframe of Blade's Edge. Enjoy your loss. Rip. I think, yeah, rip. I think that's it. I'll say this is if it happens to you, or if you've done it, if you're playing against somebody, you do something and it causes a DC, please be the right player, announce the bug, give some information on it as to what happened, what you did, obviously, oops, my bad, didn't mean to do that, but give them the information. So then hopefully it gives the devs enough information so they can find out exactly what's going on. They can fix it and get that map back in so that everybody can then rip on how much they actually hate the map, and not just for being knocked out, but because it's a Z-axis map and that causes headaches for people, especially in RSS, because it needs coordination and RSS doesn't have any. Ooh, if only they could have premades in RSS.
Well, that's you just described 3v3 arena. You just said 3v3.
I know. I'm being talked. That was bad. All right. Let's get into the very end. I want to do the CD moment, the cooldown moment, and then we'll finish this one out. Oh, that is way too loud. I need to turn that down for next time. Sorry for rip everybody's ears. All right, cooldown moment. I want to talk about this one. It's going to be the Arcane Surge. So I'm going to put it up on the screen here. The Arcane Surge, expend all of your current mana to annihilate your enemy target or and nearby enemies for up to 215.74% of your spell power times 2 as arcane damage based on mana spent. Deals reduced damage beyond 5 targets. Obviously that's a Mythic Plus addition. And for the next 15 seconds, your mana regeneration is increased by 425%, and your spell damage is increased by 35%. It's a 1.5 minute cooldown, 2.5 seconds, and a 40-yard range. This sounds like if you see an arcane mage casting or channeling Arcane Surge, I take it that the initial thing is shut them down as fast as possible.
Yeah, you want to interrupt any downstream spells. Sometimes they can cast this out of mass invisibility, and so sometimes you won't see the initial cast, but they'll have the Arcane Surge buff. And then that's kind of the downside of playing arcane is you're a bit limited onto. You have to cast a substantial amount of your damage to some degree. So if you can just interrupt any downstream arcane spells, then you're
Mhm.
going to shut down a lot of the damage. I mean, typically they'll also pair it with Touch of the Magi, and so you have to be ready as well for a big chunk of damage to land after Touch of the Magi explodes.
Yeah.
And the scary thing also about Arcane Mage is that they can execute with their Arcane Barrage. So I believe it's below 35%. Their barrage hits significantly harder. So you don't want to drop below 35% if possible. And part of that is going to include interrupting those arcane casts. In polymorph missiles, those are the major ones you should look out for. Potentially arcane blast, but they need to channel those missiles to buff their barrage as well. So typically, that's the good thing. That's always a high value interrupt because you kind of delay their execute a little bit.
Now, can you, as an arcane, if you're playing arcane as a mage, can you cancel casting this so that if somebody comes in to kick it, if you like stop, then you juke, then you have precog, and then you can just free cast?
Yeah, you could do that because you have to cast the arcane surge. It's really weird. It's a weird looking ability.
Yeah.
It's unlike any other offensive cooldown because you have to cast your cooldown, which is weird.
You cast it and then channel it. So as long as you're not interrupted, then so it's channeled until either you finish casting that, you run out of mana, or you stop it, and then you get back a whole bunch of mana because you're at 425% regen. Plus your arcane is 35%. So if you're able to juke a kick and you have precog with 35% increased spell damage, and you're just able to free cast like magic missiles or arcane barrage or whatever else, like you're going to be able to nuke somebody because obviously then you already just did an arcane surge, which is like a crazy amount of arcane damage as well, right?
Yeah, I think the surge itself hits for like 80k. I think it's like
Okay.
it's not huge, but it's not insignificant either. It's somewhere.
Yeah.
80k is.
Well, so if it doesn't kill you,
a lot.
it was set up for something more. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just
So
arcane is all about the downstream damage. It compounds. You want to slow it down if you can.
if you can't, is this a cooldown? Is this a defensive? Like, is this a wall or a block?
I don't want to be below 35% HP, so
Okay.
I can avoid getting X. That's the main priority. Stay above 35%.
All right. Hello, Lock Healthstone. Save my life. All right.
Exactly.
Well, that's about it for that. I think I'll ask you, Big. Do you have anybody you want to shout out? I know we're there already.
I don't.
Not even your cat?
I'll shout out my cat. Yeah, he's sleeping right now, which
good.
Evidently cats do all the time. So good job sleeping, cat.
Well, speaking of animals, we have a brand new Yorkie puppy. So I want to shout out my new Yorkie, Joy. She's a absolute cutie of a puppy. And I shout her out because she became a new alarm clock because she wakes up at 5:45 every morning. And so
Perfect.
She makes sure that I get up in time to get to have my morning coffee and get to work on time. So thanks, puppy. Hey, Princess Rihanna. Oh my God, we haven't talked to you for ages. All right. Oh, sorry, distracted. Outro. Yes, Big. Can you tell everybody where they can reach us?
Oh, absolutely, I can. You can contact us directly with a tweet to @technically_PvP or by an email to technicallypvp@gmail.com. You can also join our discussions on the Bonus Roll Productions Discord. Also, you can visit the Bonus Roll website to find the podcast directory with us and many other great shows at bonusroll.gg. This directory also has a review system, so head over there and tell everyone what you think of your favorite shows.
Indeed. And just in case everybody doesn't know, the shows that we have over there is not just World of Warcraft. There are also some other games. We have a podcast, Reborn, but wait, there's Lore, the Experimental Card for Azeroth, Girls Gone WoW, Hearth Casual, Realm Maintenance, Us, Unshackled Fury, You Think You Do But You Don't, The 10th Divine, Wrath Babies, and Going IRL. And I believe there's some more podcasts that they're going to be adding shortly to that lineup as well. So definitely lots to listen to just under the Bonus Roll Productions umbrella. As always, links for everything are going to be in the show notes. I want to thank you all for listening, and we'll chat with you next time. Good night, everybody.
Hey, guys.